What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Calin and I'm training to complete an Ironman in 2021. So today I wanted to look into the effects of dehydration on endurance performance, especially when we think of exercise-induced dehydration. What motivated me to look into this is basically Calgary has been having amazing weather lately. It was 17 degrees Celsius today and sunny and beautiful. And basically a bad habit that I formed over the winter was not drinking during my long runs. I honestly didn't think much of it because I never felt bad and I was never thirsty when it was cold. And I know that you still do get dehydrated when it's cold, but I just never felt it. Well, today I definitely felt it. I got really thirsty, and during my 2-hour long run, my pace dropped pretty significantly. I guess to motivate myself to stop being dumb, I'm gonna be looking into the negative effects of dehydration, and basically I wanna see how bad my performance is hit when I'm dehydrated. So please leave a like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. Let's start this off with a review that compares the effects of dehydration on endurance performance for fixed power exercise and time trial exercise. The figure that I'm showing are basically the results from multiple studies. The bottom axis is the percent change in power output due to dehydration. The bottom half of studies are basically the fixed power output studies, and then the top half of these studies are the time trial studies. So the results for the bottom half, which are the power clamp studies, you see an average decrease in power output of about 2% plus or minus 1.5%. So for the time trial studies on the top, we actually see an average of around 0.09% plus or minus 2.6% of power output, which sounds pretty weird, but most of the studies actually are a decrease or they stayed the same. So the thing about this, this review's argument was basically that the fixed power studies weren't valid because in real life scenarios, you're never actually going at a fixed power. So my point of view is that yes, it is going to be difficult to basically maintain a constant power output in real life due to constant gradient changes. But the whole idea of pacing is essentially to keep the same power. Like in my Ironman, I'm planning to stay around 65 to 70% of my FTP. And a lot of people do these long rides, these Ironman distance rides at a fixed power, like 65 to 75% of your FTP. And because of this, I think that there is some value from these fixed power studies. Okay, now let's take a little bit of a closer look and see how much dehydration the athletes experienced during these studies. So something interesting to see for the time trial studies was that there was no significant difference between the endurance performance of the people who had less than 2% body weight change and the ones that had greater than 2% body weight change. On the other hand, there was a significant difference between the two for the fixed power studies. So for less than 2% body weight change, we saw a decrease in power of about 1 plus or minus 1.5%. And for greater than 2%, we saw a decrease of 2.7 plus or minus 1.4%. I think that there's definitely some limitations to these studies. So for the time trial studies, all of them essentially capped out around 2 hours. And so I don't really think that this is a long enough time to really test the longer term effects of dehydration. And for this review, they didn't nicely lay out the fixed power studies like they did for the time trial studies. And so I didn't really look into them, but I'm assuming that they were similar. So looking a little bit closer, 2 of the 3 time trial studies that resulted in a positive change in power output due to dehydration were 1-hour time trials. What I'm going to take away from this is that we essentially lose 1 to 2% of power output for every percentage of body weight we lose due to dehydration. Now, because I'm a super curious boy, I'm gonna do some crude calculations from today's run to see if they match up with these numbers. So here is what my pace and heart rate data looked like from today's run. I'm gonna take my first kilometer and my last kilometer. So for my first kilometer, I did it in 5 minutes and 15 seconds at 144 beats per minute. And my second kilometer, I did it in 6 minutes and 43 seconds at 146 beats per minute. Converting these to kilometers per hour, just to make it a little bit easier, we get 11.5 kilometers per hour and 9.7 kilometers per hour. I'm gonna be doing a pretty crude correction to my last kilometer because my heart rate was different. And after the correction, we get 9.6 kilometers per hour. Also, I'm going to correct for the average grade of each kilometer. And again, this is crudely from a formula that I found on a forum, so don't read too much into this. But my first kilometer was 10.7 kilometers per hour, and then my last kilometer was 10.5 kilometers per hour. This gives us an almost 2% decrease in performance from my first kilometer to my last. When I got home, due to thirst, I drank 1.5 liters of water, and my body weight is 67 kilograms, so that gives us around 2% body weight decrease. So if we compare with the studies, we would be predicting a 2 to 4% decrease, and we actually calculated a decrease of 2%, which matches up even with our janky calculations. Overall, I thought that these were really interesting results, and I definitely need to find a way to start hydrating on my long runs. Anyways, guys, that is the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you found some value from this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week for another video.